founders interview on Webbiquity. Today's episode is sponsored by Shindig. Forget the fatigue, quit hopping around, create virtual events that make people say you had to be there. Check them out at shindig.com. Today, I am talking with James Creech from Paladin. Did I say that right?
You nailed it. Yeah, I got both of them right.
Welcome, James.
Thanks, Tom. Excited to be here.
How you doing?
I'm great. Yeah, nice to see you again. It's always a pleasure when we get to hang out and chat about everything going on in the B2B marketing space.
It is. I should mention James is also the host of the All Things Video podcast, which is a definite must listen.
That's right. There have been some illustrious guests on there, including the very knowledgeable and handsome Tom Pick.
Yeah.
So we'll encourage everyone. We'll point you there to go listen to those episodes.
Some very smart people as well. So do check that out. Anyway, James, let's jump into it here. So to start off kind of in a few sentences, if you could tell us what Paladin is and does, kind of who it's for and what makes it special.
Yeah. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Paladin, which is the essential influencer marketing platform for brands and agencies, right? My co-founders and I came from the influencer marketing space early on, right? 7-8 years ago, we were running influencer campaigns by hand, chasing down social media stars and trying to find the right people, ask for screenshots about reporting, put it all together in a nice Excel file or a PowerPoint. And it just, it took forever. It was exhausting. We said, there's got to be a better way to do it. So in seeking to solve the problem for ourselves, we stumbled on a solution that we realized, hey, this probably could help a lot of other people too. So we teamed up and launched Paladin to build a software product to streamline that, right? Our goal is to help brands and agencies run more successful campaigns, save them the time and the headaches that we went through finding the influencers, managing the contacts, and reporting across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch.
Excellent. As it's kind of a quick bit of background, so a few quick things. You're founded?
2016.
Okay. Funding rounds or self-funded?
We've bootstrapped. So yeah, I always joke, we have a little bit of a different model that we raise money from our customers and we call it revenue.
I like that. I like that a lot. And anything you're willing to share about current company size, number of customers, employees, anything that you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, so we have a few hundred customers. I'd have to check, but last count, we have customers in over 30 countries across 6 continents. So we've always believed that influencer marketing is a global phenomenon. We didn't want to just tackle that in New York, LA, Chicago. We wanted to do it in London and Tel Aviv and Madrid and Amsterdam. So it's been fun for us to see how this has played out all over the world. And each market is unique, right? One platform is super popular here in the States, and it's barely scratched the surface in Thailand or Vietnam. And of course, the platforms that are important there oftentimes are local or unique to their specific markets. So it's fascinating to see those differences. And then the other thing I can share is that the team is roughly 26 people. So we're still relatively small. It's mostly engineering, but we've got a good number of folks fighting a good fight on the business side too. And just excited to help our customers run better influencer campaigns.
I should throw in another question. You mentioned working with both brands and agencies. What about B2B versus B2C? A mix of both, mostly one or the other? How does that break down?
Yeah, so our business is squarely B2B, right? Our customers are businesses that are using the software to help them in their day-to-day processes. Now, that said, the end users, right, the use case has been both B2B and B2C. I would say most of the time, right, the lion's share of that is going to be B2C, given number one, we're all familiar with influencer marketing on Instagram and TikTok. And so immediately it evokes those ideas of, consumer brands that are trying to reach an audience. But of course, lots of really cool B2B examples too. I think we're actually seeing more traction on LinkedIn and Twitter and Clubhouse and all these kind of new platforms where B2B marketing experts and B2B brands are leveraging the power of influencers to promote their products.
You kind of alluded to this earlier, but what inspired you? I know that you were doing this, but what inspired you to actually say, okay, we're solving these problems anyway, let's make a business out of it?
Yeah, I always talk to, when I do advisory work or when I talk to other entrepreneurs, there's that critical moment, right? I call it taking the leap, right? What's that entrepreneurial leap where you say, okay, no more nights and weekends, or no more thinking about this. I'm going to put it into reality and actually take the plunge. And so for us, it came in April 2016. We had been doing this kind of in a part-time capacity as an experiment, saying, hey, is there a business here? Can we validate product market fit, that people will pay for this, everything else, right? And, for us, I think you have to be a little bit crazy, or you have to have the conviction that, what you're going to bet on yourself, and that, you don't have everything figured out, but you're able to kind of, put the other pieces together as you're going along. And we just got to a point where we said, okay, we feel like we've got a good idea here. We are uniquely positioned to solve this problem. We were early to influencer marketing. We were practitioners. We have peers in the industry who would be great customers for a product like this. We know we don't know everything about the commercial model, but we'll figure that out as we go along. And so we just said, okay, let's scrape together our savings and bet on ourselves. And for us, never look back. We said, hey, we're gonna roll the dice, and so far it's worked out.
Great. So if you think back to those early days, when you first launched, what were sort of the most effective channels or methods for you to get the word out about the product to your prospective customers?
So a lot of it was relationships, right? Like with anything, lean on your network and find out, okay, who are the people that we know that could benefit from this product today? And just, beg, borrowing any attention we could get from people. Hey, will you go to coffee with me? Hey, will you take 5 minutes to tell me about how you solve these problems today? And especially in the early days, people were very open, right? And increasingly, that's one of the most amazing things about digital media, about the influencer marketing ecosystem, is people seem willing to share and collaborate and learn from one another. So that's been really a big part of our success. Beyond that, events and trade shows are always huge, especially for a B2B business like ours. VidCon, Digital Entertainment World, all of these kind of specialty trade shows around digital media, influencer marketing, right, have been important for us to find customers. Targeted travel too. I mentioned we have business all over the world. We have an office in Europe. We have an office in Asia. And so when I would go visit our engineering teams in Europe or Asia, we would make a habit of, hey, can we swing through and see some customers? Or, hey, can we go to some markets and meet with some people, have a quick coffee and say, hey, we'd like to work with you and learn about your challenges. And so that's been part of it too. But, at the end of the day, it's all hand-to-hand combat. It's trying to find out what are the marketing channels that work for us? What's the content marketing strategy that could be successful? What can we do around getting in front of the right people through referrals and our network? And that's what's helped us get to where we are today.
Knowing a little bit about the business and about some of the other things that you're doing, as I mentioned, to what extent did you actually use influencer marketing, I guess, to help launch this? And then also, what role does if any, does the podcast play as more of a content marketing tactic to help?
Yeah, definitely. So we really don't do influencer marketing for Paladin. We probably should, right? It's funny. It's one of those situations where, the cobbler's kids have no shoes. So maybe it's just, time or attention. We've never really put much energy into that. Now, that said, I try to share insights from people on the podcast, and I post on LinkedIn daily. And so, not that I think of myself as an influencer or a thought leader or anything like that, but I do enjoy kind of connecting with other people in the industry and sharing perspectives, and more than anything, highlighting the other smart people that I know and just saying, hey, can I interview you? Can I ask 5 questions and feature them in a LinkedIn post? Tom, will you come on my podcast and share your expertise around B2B marketing that you've gathered for 25 years, right? That's the thing where I feel more comfortable is, how can I highlight the incredible things that other people are doing? And I'm not out beating the drum of Paladin all the time or pounding my chest saying, hey, look at us, look at this product, buy. It's really more about leading with value and being part of the conversation that I think is helpful. Has the podcast led to sales? I don't know directly. I started the podcast really more as a personal side project. Even in fact, before I launched Paladin, I was doing it because I enjoyed talking with other founders. And in my prior company that I worked at, I was in this unique position where I was meeting these fascinating people from all over the world, and kind of selfishly just wanted to ask them more questions and learn about their journey. And I said, hey, to a few friends, would you mind if we recorded this and I turned it into a podcast? Because I think what you have to say is really interesting, and I'd like to be able to share it with more people. And enough of them said yes that, I started a podcast 6 years ago. even before kind of podcasts were cool and that whole trend caught on. But, I do it more so as a creative passion project, and sure, does it have probably beneficial aspects for myself or for Paladin? Yeah, I hope so. But I don't know that there's maybe as much of a causal link between people, signing up to use Paladin as I would hope. But it's, if they do, that's just gravy. That's awesome if they find that interesting.
Fantastic. So finish the sentence for me. Knowing what I know now, if I were starting over today, what I would do differently is...
There's so many things, right? The most immediate piece of advice that I give to other entrepreneurs is go deep before you go wide, right? I repeat this all the time, and I still, need to remind myself to continue to keep this practice top of mind. But I find it so easy to say, oh, let's build this, and then let's do that, and we'll offer this service, and right, and then you try to kind of be all things to everyone, and that just kind of waters down your value proposition. What's most compelling is to be the best at something, right? So how can we be the leader in influencer discovery, right? Let's just take one problem and solve it, alleviate a 10x pain point, be a leader in that. And then from there, okay, sure, it's a natural extension to build an influencer CRM, to build royalty accounting and payments so that influencers can get paid on time. And there's, effective, transparent processes around that. How can we build campaign reporting, right? Let those things be an expansion on your initial product, but go deep before you go wide is the biggest headline advice. Beyond that, there's so many things that you learn in your first year and, your first time starting a business that, it's going to be unique to everyone. You can read books and listen to podcasts and talk to other entrepreneurs and learn as much as you can. Sometimes you have to make your own mistakes. But the other thing that I think we keep coming back to is we didn't really invest heavily enough in marketing at the outset, right? We were focused on having, our sales team pounding the pavement and going to these conferences. And when it started out, it was a small pond, and we could kind of, we were a well-known entity in that small pond. But then it got to a point where influencer marketing just kept exploding, right? And in order to share that story and continue to stay top of mind, you need to have a bigger megaphone, right? We needed to be doing more marketing from the outset. And, it's something that we're trying to remedy now, but, we're starting too late. I wish we had started doing that 4 or 5 years ago.
So with that in mind, what's the sort of the most important or most valuable advice you could offer to an entrepreneur starting out today?
I think the first thing is to be very experimental in your approach, right? So one of the mistakes that I made as an entrepreneur is when you come into the business, you are both a founder, but you also have some sort of day-to-day responsibility, right? You can't escape the fact that you're still expected to be an individual contributor in some capacity. For me, it was strategy, sales, business development, all the things that, I had a skill set around that I needed to bring to the company. For my co-founders, we had a CTO who was working with the engineering team. He needed to hire developers. He needed to do code reviews. We needed to ship a product on time. And then for our COO, he's got to make sure the trains run on time. There's got to be a budget. We've got to make sure that the product vision is architected correctly. And so we all had our core responsibilities, our functional areas. And as an individual contributor, especially who's someone who's worked in businesses for a few years before you start your first company, what you're used to is doing, right? Okay, I get the dopamine hit every time I close a deal, every time I have a really good sales call, and we're working on a business development partnership. That's awesome. I'm excited. I feel like I'm pushing the business forward. But what you need to do is also carve out the time to work on the strategic elements of your business, not just the tactical parts of the day-to-day, right? So switching between those two modes, kind of having the strategic and the tactical interface is very challenging to kind of create the space and say, well, I need to do some effort to actually work on my founder responsibilities in addition to my day-to-day responsibilities. And I call that now, you need to spend time thinking about the business just as much as you spend time doing, on or about the business. And I definitely got caught up in activity and not thinking about the business in a really deep way, as much as I would have liked to in the early days.
Excellent. I love that. So a couple of questions related more to kind of the some things I've learned about you and the business.
Yeah.
Being I do a fair amount of influencer marketing on the B2B side, which is, I think, a very different beast from B2C.
Certainly.
I would say I think and talk and work a lot on the big four kind of the social networking world, right? So Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Obviously, there are a lot of other platforms out there:
Right.
Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and of course, Clubhouse has been getting a lot of attention lately.
Mhm.
What, in your view, what social networks beyond those big four should B2B marketers specifically be paying attention to, if any?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we've been following as a macro trend that I think is really interesting to highlight is this move away from, call it the social media 1.0 public broadcast models, right? YouTube famously broadcast yourself as the tagline, right? Taking television, putting it on the internet, disintermediating the barriers so that anyone could create their own programming and build an audience and monetize. Same thing for Instagram with photos, and now of course all content formats, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, they all follow that same playbook. Now you've got social media 2.0, which tends to be more community oriented. They're kind of playing on that exclusivity factor, going after niche audiences. So the things that come to mind are like Discord, right? Private Discord servers. You and I might love fishing or arts and crafts or photography, yoga, right? Anything that we have a passion or an interest in, you can create these kind of siloed Discord kind of communities. The same is true for OnlyFans, right? It's got a bit of a stigma around the adult content today, but I think it has potential and a life beyond that. It's going to grow beyond that. You've got Community, which just raised $40 million, right? And they're doing SMS, which is a fascinating way, right? Everyone kind of has shied away from email marketing, and now it's kind of coming back as newsletters are growing, and the value of an email marketing campaign has kind of come back into fashion. I think the same is true for SMS, right? I mean, we all are inundated with notifications on social media, but what's the one thing we'll pick up as soon as we get that Pavlovian response of an alert, right? It's I'm going to pick up my phone and see what's going on. So SMS is really powerful, and what communities building is interesting. So how do we apply that through the lens of B2B, right? In what context could B2B marketers take advantage of these platforms? I love LinkedIn. I'm a big fan of what they're doing. We could talk for hours about some of my concerns post Microsoft acquisition, some of the things I think they've done that have watered down the platform, but I think still it remains a very valuable place for professional networking. Like I remember 5 years ago when I could basically connect with anyone and just say, hey, Tom, I think what you do is really cool. I'd love to, get coffee sometime if we're in the same city, or I'd love to, call you up and pick your brain for 10 minutes. And a lot of people were like, yeah, let's do it, right? Because it was this whole idea of early adopters and let's chat and we'll share and we'll learn from one another. Now there's so much spam on LinkedIn that, most of that, it's harder to do that, have those kind of casual connections of, I think you're interesting, I want to learn from you. But I think LinkedIn is really powerful, and they're leaning into the creators with the recent announcement this month, the creator mode. They're getting more into other formats like video and encouraging people to share insights on the platform. Clubhouse is a tricky one to call because it's so early. I was excited about it when it first came out, spending a lot of time. I think my enthusiasm has faded a little bit, especially given there's so much competition now. Facebook is, launching 3 competitors on its own. Twitter Spaces has a pretty compelling value proposition. There's a lot of other, social media incumbents and startups trying to tackle the audio space, which is awesome. Big believer in the audio format and where it's going. But, for me, if I were a B2B marketer, where am I going to put my time and my money? It would be LinkedIn, YouTube for sure. I think it's underutilized for B2B. Twitter is compelling for certain verticals, news, politics, sports. Like you have to be on Twitter. I don't know that it's necessarily right for every B2B business, but there's a case to be made, and it's worth doing your homework. And then this is kind of weird, but I would say check out TikTok, right? Like TikTok is so interesting for a few reasons. Number one, the viral growth coefficient is so powerful right now, right? The organic reach that you can get on TikTok is unparalleled anywhere else, especially when you combine that with the fact that it has a massive user base. And surprisingly, there's a lot of B2B content on there, right? Like there's people talking about stocks, or there's people sharing best practices. In fact, Brendan Gahan, one of the guys that I follow, and I think he's got a lot of interesting things to say about digital media, started a TikTok and grew to 50,000 followers in a matter of months, just because he was experimenting and sharing some really cool stuff. So in any event, I would encourage people to spend some time and play around with TikTok too. But that's one man's opinion. I'd be curious, Tom, what you recommend for people as well.
I've been focused mostly on those platforms. I haven't really thought about TikTok. I have seen some success on Instagram for a number of clients in the event marketing space. And
Okay.
it's B2B, but it's a more visual business, right? Because you've got, well, pre-COVID anyway, you've got these, these amazing venues or wonderful catering, spreads put out, entertainment acts, right? So there's it's a very visual kind of business, so it works well in that sense. More than enterprise software, not so much, but in the right verticals within B2B, that can work. That's one that I've used. Another question related again to kind of your experience with both the podcast and with Paladin.
Yeah.
I've actually written about this, but I'm really curious as to your thoughts. What do you think are the big differences between, and similarities if there are any? Well, I mean, there are some, of course, but between B2B and B2C influencer marketing, kind of how do those two compare and contrast?
Yeah. Well, real quick, I would be remiss if I didn't also mention Pinterest. I think what you said about visually appealing B2B brands on Instagram translates just as well, if not more powerfully, to Pinterest. And I'm really excited about what they're building and the opportunities on that platform. So another one for your listeners to check out. When it comes to B2B versus B2C marketing and the differences, right? Number one is audience intent, right? Think about when and where is your audience spending time and what are they going to that destination for, right? Like you can probably relate anecdotally to people sharing pictures of their kids on LinkedIn. That's cute. It's not where I want to see that content. If you want to share that on Facebook or Instagram, be my guest, but right, that's really probably not the platform for it. So think about intent and think about what your audience is looking for, and then reverse engineer that. Right? I mean, the same is true for B2C, right? If I'm thinking about, okay, I'm a product marketer, I want people to download my new app or buy my product. Is TikTok right for you? Is that where your audience is spending time? If your audience is older, maybe that's not the case, or maybe they will be there eventually, and you want to kind of build it out before they come. In any event, think about what is your audience looking for, and who do they find influential? What are the formats that speak to them? Kind of reverse engineer what will be meaningful to your audience. I guess the other elements between B2B and B2C. There are probably fewer types of content formats for B2B where you have to think about, okay, am I going to be informational or educational in my content? Am I going to be entertaining, but somehow related back to the professional context that we're operating under? I find that the most successful B2B influencers, are talking about the realities that their product or services create, and not about the product itself. So maybe this goes back to Stuart Butterfield from Slack's famous blog post on Medium, where he talks about, we don't sell saddles, right? We're not in the business of just selling this productivity application. We want to convince people that there's a world where they're not so reliant on email, and that they can create more seamless communication and dialogue within their organization, and create these, this native knowledge base where it's not just siloed, but everyone can communicate and find information effortlessly, right? So he uses the analogy that we're not selling saddles, we're selling horseback riding, we're selling this lifestyle, we're selling this, this ideal. And I think, B2B marketing should do that successfully just as much as a B2C marketer could. And it's really more about leading with value. So in our case for Paladin, it's not just about, okay, here's a tool to help you find influencers, here's a feature that helps you report, here's a solution that's going to save you time, right? We can quantify the ROI. That's all well and good. But, what do the best influencer campaigns look like? How do we talk about empowering marketers to create more successful campaigns and learn from successes and failures and share that knowledge as an industry so we get better together? We could probably underscore more differences and similarities between the two, but hope that gives you a bit of a sense of the way that we approach it.
Yeah. My thought was with regard to influencer marketing specifically, the B2C side seems more sort of packaged, mature, organized, whereas B2B is, it's a different world. It's more about building relationships than, buying X number of Instagram impressions. And I think your platform is kind of a reflection of that, because I haven't seen anything. I don't think there is anything that's really comparable in terms of the B2B side. It's almost as though B2C influencer marketing is selling cars, B2B influencer marketing is selling kits from which you can build a car. What do you think of that?
You're not wrong, right? And the B2B space is so broad, right? So the influential personalities could be journalists, authors, whoever is relevant in your space. They might have a big social media following, they might not, right? They could be influential on other platforms or for other reasons. So, I think blogs, I think, LinkedIn and Twitter still hold a lot of power in the B2B space. And less so, the B2C space is pretty well defined by, okay, who are the most successful influencers on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok? So I think you're right that it's a little bit more clear cut. Here you go. Here are the well-defined roles, definitions. Audiences know what to expect. Oh, I'm getting a sponsored integration, or I'm watching a pre-roll ad, before a piece of content. Whereas B2B marketing is really more about being an advocate. It doesn't happen with an initial point of purchase. Oftentimes your value in the purchase price is much higher. So it's kind of guiding that customer journey. It's giving them a lot more information and helping them try to inform the decision. And of course, you've been through that throughout the journey, and you've been, a source of knowledge and inspiration for them. So hopefully they are considering your product if you have a good offering among that. But it's really more about, being a voice as part of that consideration process, not just saying, hey, here's some merch, or hey, go buy that product because I think it's cool and I think you'll like it too. It's much more long-term and involved sales cycle.
Exactly. James, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. Last question before I let you go. How can people find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So number one is LinkedIn. For me personally, just James Creech. Follow me on LinkedIn. I like I said, post every weekday with some updates and try to share some fun, valuable stuff with everyone I find on there. Also, just enjoy meeting new people and happy to connect and have a quick chat or exchange ideas, through LinkedIn messages. If you want to learn more about Paladin, check out our website, paladinsoftware.com, Paladin software.com. And then the last thing I'll mention is the podcast, All Things Video, which features interviews with entrepreneurs and innovators in digital media, music, entertainment, technology, just kind of anything that's fascinating. I started in the video space, but it's obviously grown much more beyond the title. So All Things Video, encourage people to check out and listen to that as well.
Great. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Tom.